if you're in business, what you know today, our new normal is there are not enough resources and we're expected to deliver more. And so the idea of carving out resources for an audience segment that is in a lot of ways misunderstood. So I think because it's hard, limited resources, but there's also a misunderstanding about how to connect with the Hispanic market. And some of the statistics you saw in the first session show that the growth with the Hispanic market is coming from U.S.-born Hispanics versus immigration. And so that tends to give brands and marketers a little bit of an excuse to say, you know what, they're more and more like my general market, and so I can reach them with what I'm already doing. And in fact, they really need to think about it the other way. The general market is more and more like my Hispanic market, and I should really lead with Hispanic.
So having come into this space not very long ago, about 2 years ago, you know, the first thing that I was bombarded with was some of the things we heard this morning. Well, the community's so fragmented. Are you going to be reaching first, second, or third generation? Are you going to be reaching Mexicans or Colombians? Are you talking to LA or Miami? And that kind of puts the hesitation and the fear, and perhaps for efficiency's sake, the desire, maybe the impetus to go a total market route. So can you talk a little bit about how you approach this community as one, as many? How has it evolved? What are some things, just from a community standpoint, marketers should be thinking about when they start thinking about engaging the community?
So I'll talk a little bit about an approach that we have at my agency. It's called Omniculturalism, and it's based on the idea that today people are more open to cultural exchange than they've ever been before. And it's not just learning about other cultures, it's embracing of those cultures. And you see it in music, you see it in entertainment, and what that does is it starts to get at a mindset that is a shared mindset. And if you can use that as opposed to countries of origin or traditional demographics in order to find ways to connect, a lot of times it becomes a more emotional way to connect than a rational way to connect. And what we've seen, there are studies, there's a study of 1,400 different campaigns that showed that if you can land in emotional territory more than in rational territory, your advertising is going to work twice as hard. And so if you take an approach like a mindset approach and really tap into some of those emotions, you can really deliver some powerful advertising.
Just to build on the emotion piece that Pete talks about, you know, I was once in a Hispanic forum, and we were looking at the neuroscience of marketing, and this whole new field that has come up that's called neuromarketing, and it absolutely fascinated me because they had actual scientific research that delivering your advertising message in language, Spanish, the language of the heart, helps to get to that emotion. And what they showed is you have a physical, biological response when you hear words in Spanish, whether you are English dominant at home, Spanish dominant at home, or Spanglish somewhere in between. Hearing your native tongue really brings that emotion. Your body has, there's measured biometrics, there's measurement in the brainwaves, and it brings a certain sense of peace, calm, and home. And if you can deliver that through your advertising, you've cut through.
And in fact, there are metrics behind it. So Nielsen did a study of 50 different campaigns, and it showed that you could achieve a 50% increase in ad recall in Spanish versus the same ad run in English. And so it is meaningful. And I think today, with the political environment that we're in this country, brands need to reach out and say, look, you, the Latino community, we value you as a customer. And too many of them are just trying to keep their heads down and not cause any controversy, and they're missing an opportunity.
And a lot of times what you talk about, whether it's that emotional insight or the language, there's nuances to that. It's not just a translation. It's not just, oh, let's talk about family because the Hispanic community is about family. You gotta go a little bit deeper. And to do that, you gotta have resources, right? And so how do you convince, a brand manager, how do you convince your clients or internally at Reliant, your CMO, that you can't just go total marketing? You have to have a targeted approach to this community. What are some of the things or insights that maybe you have found that have been helpful in getting those resources?
Well, one of the things that we do quite a bit is we dig into the business case, and we're able to bring to the client a kind of a methodology that says, if you are willing to commit at this level, this is what you're going to return in terms of sales volume, in terms of share of households, things like that. And when you do that, they follow the money. And but at the same time, you have to have on the client side somebody internally who's a champion who says, because I mean, we've heard it all day. So, but I've already, we've heard it. There is this hesitation, even though the metrics are there. That everybody knows Hispanic is the second fastest growing now, I guess, compared to Asian, but still it's the most sizable opportunity out there, and you still have CEOs, CMOs, CFOs who are unwilling to commit, and so you need a champion internally in addition to you as an agency helping make the case that there's money to be made, opportunity in the Hispanic market.
From the brand perspective or the client side, to that I'd add, the business case is where we all rally, and of course, you can gathering internal resources, internal talent to be able to help you put a strong business case together. But I would advocate so strongly on the client side that arming yourself with a really great Hispanic agency, they can help so much to help get that message through. But one of the things and best pieces of advice I ever got from a Hispanic agency probably about a decade ago was when we were working on our business case to be able to get the resources we need and the budget allocation we needed to reach our Hispanic consumer. They said, don't only size the opportunity based on your number of existing customers and then projections that get you to the overall size of the pie, but also include that lost opportunity cost. What will it cost us if we don't reach this consumer? And so having those two sides of the coin to fill that negative, to fill the void, and then the growth that is the growth potential on top of that was really quite powerful and effective in helping us get through.
So let's talk about that for a second, and I'll play devil's advocate a bit because I just went through this journey the past couple of years. So you need a Hispanic agency. Well, Latinos are the mainstream now. We all speak English. Why do we need a Hispanic agency? Our mainstream agencies are just as good at reaching the population. What do you say to that when your CMO says you don't need a Hispanic agency? And Pete, in your case, to convince the client that it's actually more important now than ever.
Yeah, I would say, for me, the business case has always worked. I've worked for a number of brands where we've had to go on this journey. And that's the other thing is brands are in different places of their journey. And what I've learned is the journey is not always linear. It's not always sequential. In other words, you might have someone, you've hired an internal champion, you have an executive sponsor behind you to do this, and then a strategic change comes in, management at the top changes, and everything that you've done takes you 5 years back. And so you're rebuilding that business case. That business case, for me, I have found it to be a living document. You are always going back in there, measuring results against it, having to prove it over and over. In some cases, it's exhausting because you're like, we don't have to work this hard to ascertain our general market agency budget. Why must we work so hard to solidify our Hispanic agency budget? But you know what? That's where we all rise to the challenge in this room because it's in our spirit to be tenace, to never give up, to keep going, and just prove that worth. And that's all we can do over and over. When they see the passion in you, they can't help but to say, let's give this a shot. We don't have to go big. Let's start small. We don't have to hire a fancy research company and, spend $100,000 doing research. Start with your internal energy resource groups. Start with the own members of your family and friends. There's ways to do it to help advance.
Okay, so let's get into it then, into the real example. So you convince your internal company, you convince your client, we have a Hispanic agency, we're ready to go. What are some things that you need to start thinking about? What are some best practices to really reach this consumer?
Well, I would say you got to stop a number of things. So, and I wrote a couple things down. Like, quit saying that we know we should be doing more in the Hispanic market, but we just don't know what to do. Just quit saying it, because it's ridiculous. You got to move at some point, and stop telling yourself that the total market approach is good enough. That you're going to reach your Hispanic, English dominant, kind of like my general market Hispanics through that approach. It's I think it lends a false sense of what is right. We have clients that, and I use this phrase a lot, and I hope nobody is from Plano here, because I say, and I don't mean anything against Plano, I say, a lot of our clients have kids, and their kids hang out with non-white friends, and they convince themselves, they come over, they watch the same YouTube, they play video games, they're all the same. And again, it's a false sense of really knowing who the market is. You've got to dig in deep. You've got to do your homework. You've got to have a champion, and you've got to commit. And you've got to quit saying, again, I don't know what to do. You just need to move.
What are some things, Laris, at Reliant that you guys are doing specifically to address the Hispanic consumer?
Absolutely. So we operate mostly in the state of Texas. NRG operates in the Northeast as well as in Texas. But for Reliant, Texas is our target market. And so you can imagine within all of the markets that exist within Texas, we were talking, Pete, Marisa, earlier about San Antonio being so incredibly different from Dallas, being so incredibly different from Houston, being so incredibly different from Corpus. The notion that we have to tailor to each of these markets. And so at Reliant, we've actually structured around our markets. And then once we structure around our markets, then we restructured around the consumer. My marketing organization is structured around the consumer. And of course, then that means reaching the Hispanic audience. And one of the main insights that we have as we dug into our own data taps very much into Stacy Nielsen's comment this morning about our cultural predisposition. Mm-hmm. We are a very social group. We value community and communal over the individualistic, very different from our non-Hispanic counterparts. So that notion has allowed us to tap into investing in our face-to-face channels, knowing that our customers really like to talk to our agents. We've tapped into social media, knowing that we love to share the brands that matter to us as recommendations. Referral programs, very, very, very big for brands with the Hispanic community. If you're not doing it today, that's one of those actions that I would say start looking into that immediately. Referral is a very, very big big opportunity for this community and a part of our business case as well. So I think the final thing is, as we look at there's two mega trends that we're following in our industry, and one is sustainability. So we also saw on the very last slide before Stacy broke, we saw that that's becoming more and more important to our consumers. As a power generator, having a sustainable power generation, and then as a retailer working for the Reliant brand, making sure that sustainability is there is key. The other mega trend is digitalization. So obviously we've heard a lot about reaching the Hispanic consumer through digital marketing. And as Pete said, that is very hard to do. We can start small. If you really want to grow the program to scale, that's where I would recommend connecting with some of the great agencies that are here today. I want to call out Lalo, who's here representing Reliant, who's my Hispanic agency. So get with your agency, find Pete, get with his agency and get some help.
Awesome. Pete, tell us some great things you've seen in the market. Clearly, being in the agency world, you're exposed to great work, targeting and really connecting with the multicultural consumer. Tell us a little bit about some of that work. What are some inspiration examples that we can look to?
So the last slide talked about how consumers expect brands to take a stand. And so there's a lot of question, I think apprehension on the side of marketers about if I do something that is specifically Hispanic or African American or LGBTQ, am I going to alienate somebody? And the answer is you might. Look at Nike. Nike came out with their Colin Kaepernick campaign, and some people burned their shoes, but they also generated hundreds of millions of dollars in noise about the brand, and it ended up increasing their sales. So you might offend some people, but it was the right thing to do. And so I think that's really where you've got to start. What is the right thing to do, and worry less about who am I going to offend? Now, there's a spectrum, obviously. You've got Colin Kaepernick, who's super controversial. You have women's empowerment, where arguably you shouldn't be offending too many people by standing behind women's empowerment. And then you have more subtle approaches. And so I've got some pieces of work that I'll share just as examples. The first is from Procter & Gamble. And earlier you heard about Mark Pritchard, Nikki Gonzalez. One of the things that I've seen him speak a number of times, and one of the things that he says repeatedly is if you're not doing multicultural marketing, you're not doing marketing. And so one of the questions you took the question about why should you hire a Hispanic agency or my general market agency? My answer to that might be you should fire your general market agency and go with a multicultural agency. And I say that somewhat jokingly, but the reality is that we've spent our lives understanding the nuances of culture, and we're better equipped than somebody who's general market agency to really tap into those traits within the community. So the first piece of work I'm going to show you is not Hispanic, but it to me is a kind of a lighthouse on where brands should be taking the message. So let me show you that.
Who said that?
The lady at the store.
That is not a compliment.
Listen, it's an ugly, nasty word, and you are going to hear it. Nothing I can do about that. But you are not going to let that word hurt you. You hear me?
There are some people who think you don't deserve the same privileges just because of what you look like. It's not fair. It's not.
Remember, you can do anything they can.
Difference is you gotta work twice as hard and be twice as smart.
Come straight from my practice. You got your ID? Guess I stopped you. How's your review?
You're good.
You good? You
Yeah,
see?
you're good.
Okay, good. Now, when you get pulled over, I'm a good driver. Baby, don't worry. This is not about you getting a ticket. This is about you not coming home. I'm gonna be okay. Right? Okay, baby.
It's not fair. But you keep showing up.
You are not pretty for a black girl. You are beautiful, period. Okay? Don't ever forget that.
So that's real, and it's powerful. And even though I'm not African American, it resonates with me. There are things that I've had to deal with draw parallels to. And Lydia was telling me that she had to have a conversation with, was it a
A
nephew?
nephew. So this is so real, and this impacts all of us, especially in the Latino community where we have Afro-Latinos as part of the community and Afro-Caribbean. And so I'll take a little sidebar just to say, one of my nephews, whom I had the pleasure of seeing last night, he lives here in Dallas as I came in to travel for the event, received some luxury gifts for his birthday. He's turning 16, and he received them from a friend who's an Instagrammer and makes $1,200 a week on Instagram. He's 16 years old. So his friend gifted him, I think it was a Louis Vuitton belt and a Supreme backpack and a little chain with some bling on it. He was showing me everything, and he was crying, and he was saying, a brown person should not be able to afford or have or espouse any of these luxury goods. I did not let him walk away from me in that moment. I had to take that moment to talk to him about his worth. And so it's this narrative, it is this perception that we are trying to change, and I applaud the advertisers, and I thank Pete for bringing this example today, because it just has so many extensions and direct applications into our lives.
I also, every time I see that, I just get choked up. It's such a powerful message. And I think it goes to show that for multicultural advertising or Hispanic advertising, it's more than selling a product. It's not just about, talking to the community company. It really is a responsibility to elevate the community. Every one of us as marketers has that responsibility. And we can use the power of advertising to do that. And I think there's another one you have, right? That I'd love for you to share.
So,
I think it's
so P&G did a follow-up to this, a spot called The Look, which shows an African-American man going through his daily life and being looked at in odd ways, which again, those are things that I can relate to. I didn't bring that spot just for time, but I'm going to share with you another piece from Procter & Gamble. This one's from Always, and this is what I was saying earlier about women's empowerment.
Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm gonna just give you some actions to do, and just do the first thing that comes to mind. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Doesn't care. Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aww. My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run as fast as you can.
Insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
Is like a girl a good thing?
Actually, I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. It sounds like a bad thing. It sounds like you're trying to humiliate someone.
So when they're in that vulnerable time between 10 and 12, how do you think it affects them when somebody uses like a girl as an insult?
I think it definitely drops their self-confidence and really puts them down, because during that time, they're already trying to figure themselves out. And when somebody says you hit like a girl, it's like, well, what does that mean? Because they think they're a strong person. It's kind of like telling them that they're weak and they're not as good as them.
And what advice do you have to young girls who are told they run like a girl, kick like a girl, hit like a girl, swim like a girl?
Keep doing it because it's working. If somebody else says that running like a girl or kicking like a girl or shooting like a girl is something that you shouldn't be doing, that's their problem. Because if you're still scoring and you're still getting to the ball on time and you're still being first, if you're doing it right, it doesn't matter what they say. I mean, yes, I kick like a girl, and I swim like a girl, and I walk like a girl, and I wake up in the morning like a girl because I am a girl. And that's not something that I should be ashamed of. So I'm gonna do it anyway. That's what they should do.
If I asked you to run like a girl now, would you do it differently?
I would run like myself.
Would you like a chance to redo it?
Why can't run like a girl also mean win the race?
So again, powerful work, but on the spectrum of controversial, it shouldn't be, and it's not, and brands should be willing to take a stand. I've got a couple of other pieces of work. I'm going to skip one.
I wanted to just make one point, and because I know you're going to transition to some of your work. It's amazing to me. How many of you guys had seen that campaign? I think that campaign, I want to say it's almost 10 years old. Oh, are we red? Okay. It's almost 10 years old. And when you see what's transpired in our country since then, in terms of the power of young girls and women, we just saw it this summer with the World Cup. That is what advertising can do. We need that for Hispanics. We absolutely need that moment and that transformation. And trust me, that's the challenge I have. I know that's the challenge you have, and you, Pete, and everybody in this room. But that is the inspiration that we need for our community.
Marisa, just one quick comment, because I happen to know the team that worked on the talk, because it builds up what you said about the Hispanic agency. So you read everywhere, and it's a BBDO piece of work. However, the advisors culturally, for every single word and every single screen, shot, and everything was done by an African-American agency in New York City that is a small independent woman-owned firm called Egami. So it takes that and the humility, and kudos to BBDO also, to knowing I need backup culturally to get this right. So it goes back to, it's not just beautiful creative, it's authentic creative, and there was a whole team designed for that.
I know I'm getting a sign, so before a red phone, I do want to make sure though we at least have one, if not a couple questions from the audience before we leave. I know Claudia will be coming and knocking on the door if we don't get back. Okay.
First question is, currently, I see commercials by General Motors that starts with, look at the Lopez's. I see Navy Federal Credit Union start with 2 Latino families right at the beginning. That aha moment is, look at those companies are doing it. Shouldn't it be easier now?
My answer is yes, it should be. So the work that I was going to show you is for our client, the Home Depot. So when we were hired by the Home Depot 10 years ago, I told them that if you hire us, we're going to insist that you let us influence your general market work. Because at that point, their work was very, what I would call, white baby boomer advertising. And today, the spots that I was going to share with you are rooted in Hispanic insights, and they're created by the Hispanic agency, and they're running also in the general market. So the answer is, it can absolutely happen.
To the 30-second spot?
Yeah,
Just
we
in
can
30
afford
seconds.
30 minutes. We want to say your work.
La Navidad la hacemos todos juntos, los que nos ponemos el delantal y nos vestimos de gala. A veces pequeña, otras a lo grande, así de grande. Recibimos la noche con todo tipo de formas y colores, mientras compartimos la luz con nuestros seres queridos. Cuando estamos juntos, hacemos cualquier Navidad aún más mágica. Muestra tu espíritu navideño con tu lección de inflables con 25% de descuento, solo en The Home Depot.
So the Home Depot is a retailer, so there's always a transaction driver at the end.
Gotta sell.
Yeah, we gotta sell stuff. But in that spot, what you see are people not working individually, but working as a family. You see scenes that happen at night because of Noche Buena versus, in the general market, typically you'll see daytime scenes. You saw the mixed couple that was also talked about this morning. And, you know, that awkward moment that you all have likely encountered where you don't know whether to shake hands or hug. And so those are all real insights. And again, it ran in the general market and performed perfectly for the general market. And then the other spot that I was going to share is a Hispanic spot for paint, and it's called Carnaval, where we obviously tap into that insight. And for the general market, it ran in the general market, and it was the Home Depot's highest testing spot ever.
All right, go ahead
So-
and play. It's 30 seconds. It's another 30 seconds.
De Home Depot le agrega más a la pintura. ¿Ves ese color que tanto te gusta? Es hora de llevarlo a casa. Estamos refrescando la forma de elegir el color. Ahora es más fácil y rápido. Solo pide tu color, brillo y crea tu propia muestra. Crea tu propio carnaval de colores. Bienvenido a la nueva generación de pintura. Llévate la mejor pintura para cualquier presupuesto, como la pintura y primer Clean Premium desde $17.97. The Home Depot, haz más ahorrando.
That's great. I know we're out, but Andre, you asked a great question. And we were talking earlier this morning about you gotta see it to be it, right? The more we see it, the Ford ads, I know Wells Fargo, McDonald's, there's some great advertising. Pepsi, we'll see one later this afternoon. The more we see it, the more we get inspired. And the last piece that gets easy is once you have results, because there are results. And when you start showing those results, both on a sales standpoint, equity, all of the things that really tapping into the hearts and minds of Latinos can do for a business, that's when it gets easier. So we're on our way. We just have a little bit of work to do. Anything? Do we have more time, or are we? She's like, leave. All right, we're done, but I think we're transitioning into the next workshop. So you guys should have a list of those in your sheet. Go to the room that you most want to hear, and we'll keep going. Sorry, we took too long.